Wikispeed demo video, January 14th, 2016. I'm here with William Newing in the Wikispeed Lynnwood, Washington, United States shop. On the backlog today, what we got done was bolt lower A-arm and pivots on Lolchek's rear suspension. That was a medium in points. Verify PCI Express card for servers. That was a small. That's done. Mount weather pack connection solidly to engine module. We have a version of that done. We have some ideas. We might take a second revision on it, but we have a lean startup version done. That's large. Then bolt dampers to knuckles on Lolchek rear suspension. Bolt dampers to V29 mount plates. And that's actually not all, I realize, as I talk about it. Yeah, can you go over what I didn't write on the board, and I'll catch up. The ignition removal and what you're doing and why.
The ignition, yes. We are actually removing the ignition apart so we can mount it onto this steering column, which we took out of the car. This currently ignition right now in here is working, however, it does not have the correct ECU that we have in the car. So we need to replace the one that is with the ECU that's in the car with this one. So that's why I took apart the one right here that works, because it has actually some broken pieces. So hopefully, I think with some YouTubing, we can find out and figure out how to take the solenoid in here and put it into that one.
Yeah, our evil scheme, since this casting is broken and ground off, so we can't easily just swap the casting, is to take all the functional pieces off the casting and screw them onto that casting. And William, you've been at it for a little while, but it looks like you've removed almost all the electronics already. And wow, how does that guy come in or out? That's going to be a learning curve, the actual locking mechanism itself.
It's true, and I think they hopefully show it. On the older models of the Civics, they say that there is there's a pin that you can actually use a pin hook to click on it and actually rotate the solenoid itself and remove the whole assembly, which is great. This is a newer model and generation, so it looks like there is no pinhole that divots in, but we'll get to it. I mean, it's a progression. So recommendation would be definitely research the heck out of how this current model of the ignition works in order to tackle this in case you have to run into this situation in the future.
Totally. This is from a 2006 to 2011 Honda Civic. Now, all of this goes away if we're not using the original equipment manufacturer, the OEM ECU, or engine control unit, which we are. We're using the stock Honda Civic ECU, which is somewhere under all this. I actually don't see it visibly at the moment. It's a silver box, probably mounted right under this fuse box. If we used what's called a standalone ECU, right, which right now we're in a conversation with the creator of the Speed Duino, an Arduino-based engine management solution, all this goes away. Then we can use our own keys or our own password protection to start the car or not, and we don't have to deal with learning the OEM method, which is sometimes not straightforward. Other stuff we did today is to get the steering column out, we unbolted the windshield, or half of it, on car number 7 here, to then remove the cross member with the steering column and the ignition. Then we could reach the ignition, which William has then started his surgery on, which is awesome. Meanwhile, here are the 2 rear suspensions going to Michael Lolchek. And this one is ready to go, aside from having the brake pad put in the brake caliper and having the brake caliper mounted. This one, I've realized, was actually mounted in reverse. It's actually also almost done, but this top L bracket and this bottom lower A arm are bolted on the incorrect side of this suspension plate. Essentially, we made 2 left side suspensions. By bolting these on the opposite side, we'll have a left and a right, and this casting of the steering knuckle from Honda, which is one-sided, will then match. The steering arm will then be in front for front steer. This actually works for a rear steer setup, but Michael Lolchek's car, to the best of my knowledge, is being made for a front steer. So we'd want that setup. But he can actually change his mind later by switching which sides of the plates he's bolted to. In any case, these are both the same, and we need one difference. One needs to flip. Those happened. In order to make the strut top fit, in version 29 suspension, we did need to adjust these, can't think of the word again, William.
Camber?
Well, yeah, the camber, but these tools.
Oh, the
Hex keys.
hex keys, yes.
Yeah, to adjust the camber on the suspension head. So these would move side to side for the top of the suspension damper to fit through the cutout. So we did have to loosen these, adjust the camber, tighten them again so the piece would fit in. That was a learning. Then the CNC machinist actually machined these holes a little too small. So we drilled these holes larger, which just took a few minutes, so that a larger bolt so that the correct size bolt will pass through and attach. We also received these zip ties that have a plastic snap on one side. So if we drill what turns out to be a 1/4-inch hole, thank you, what turns out to be a 1/4-inch hole, this will snap in. And then we have a zip tie to then anchor tubing or wiring, which is exactly what we used it for here. Here is the end of our modular ignition connection, so we can create an ignition extension and run our ignition up to the front of the car. To anchor it, we drilled a 1/4-inch hole, snapped this part in, and then placed the zip tie around. Now ideally, half of the connector itself would be anchored, so we don't have stress on, in some cases, these very thin data wires. Will and I talked about potentially gluing Velcro to one side and then to the other side of here to hold them in place during everything but severe stress, or potentially taking one of these snap-in zip ties, cutting off the zip tie, epoxying the back end and epoxying it to half of the connector. Those were the current ideas we had. We'd be open to other ideas. For now, we're just rocking with it the way it sits because it's pretty stable, but the connector heads are able to flop and vibrate, so we'll need to do something before we go for long duration drives with this setup. Dr. Newing, what did I miss? What did I not mention?
Oh, I think that was pretty good.
Okay, relatively thorough.
Yeah.
What tip would you have to someone somewhere in the world doing work something like this?
Safety first. There's a few mishaps that we did happen, but luckily no appendages were lost and no bloods were shed. Maybe some bruisings, especially the ego, but that'll definitely always heal. I mean, it's just it works.
Yeah, when I was drilling the aluminum for the lower control arm, I didn't put it in a vise. I was freehanding it, and it vibrated around the drill bit. The drill bit caught and snapped the drill bit, which made the drill spin to the floor. And then I did it again, and with half a drill bit, because I was like, it's almost done, the hole's almost through, and I snapped the drill bit in another piece, which is okay because it was already broken. But I risked my wrist, the drill tumbling into me or William, and also I just didn't make a very clean, beautiful drilling hole. I should have taken the time to bolt it up, put on eye protection. At least I was wearing gloves, I think.
Yes, you had gloves on. We both did. And then I was drilling the other hole over there, and as I was putting the drill through the hole, I'm like, we should have eyeglasses, and I didn't verbalize. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And this little shard just comes whoosh, darting at my face, and luckily it missed my small targets. So it was good, but in hindsight, I definitely say take the time, be patient about it, put some of my gear on, and always have gloves. Thank you, Doc. As I was sitting inside the car trying to unscrew some of the bolts, I always forget about the carbon fiber, and those things are sharp.
Yeah, when the carbon fiber has been epoxied, any strands that aren't flush become little needles.
Yeah.
Totally, full on. So yes, do those things, and hopefully we'll remember next time. We've learned this lesson many times. And we learn, and then we gradually forget again as we get impatient. Hopefully we'll be in a more patient mood next week. And cool. Maybe that's really what it is, just the mood. Cultivate a mood of patience for safety and impatience for any impediments.
Awesome.
Whoa, let's try that. That maybe could go on a coffee mug.
Cool.
That's what we've got for this week. Looking forward to the comments later.